Hey y'all, it's me, Toya, with the glow up ears. Hey. So, y'all, I hope that your Friday, your week has been a great one. I am vibing and thriving on today. I really truly believe in wearing your affirmation. But today, man, I kind of wanted to get on here on today to kind of talk to you all about just understanding that it's okay to let go of the past you. Um, it's okay for you to embrace the new you. And it's okay for you to not know, right? Last week we talked about trusting God in all things, like just trusting Him. And y'all know now I'm in North Carolina, so I'm so excited to be here. It is really been really great for my soul. And it's also been great for me physically to be in a new environment. And God has really been showing up and blessing me and blessing others through me. And so I'm excited. Listen, so the song that I got playing in the background is a song by Demita Haddon. She was married to Dietrich Haddon, but her last name is not Haddon anymore. But that's what I know about Demita Haddon. But it's a song called No Looking Back. Um, and I was very intentional with the song because I had been reading this week, right? And I got into the book of Genesis and I was reading on Lot's wife. And I think sometimes, right, we can identify. We can identify with those things, leaving things behind. And we get so caught up in what we're used to, what we're comfortable with, even down to the habits, even down to the habits that we have. And so, even with that, God wants us to do new things. And so, even to, speaking on the new things that it is that God has called us to do, we have to allow those old things to be passed away. I challenge you to read the story. It is in the book of Genesis. So definitely check that out. But I like to think about women in the Bible, right, that I can relate to. And so it was crazy how God had revealed her to me. And I always thought that she was a curious person because I'm like, she is so crazy. Why would she, look back when her husband told her not to look back, right? But sometimes we get so caught up in what we're used to that we're nervous about what's to come. And some of us, right, we're changing. Like we've gotten up, we're getting older, right, with age. We're getting older spiritually. We're getting older in all different types of aspects. We're outgrowing friendships. We're outgrowing relationships, and that's okay. Um, but sometimes those things can be scary. And that's why I said on last week to trust God in all, like trust God with all your heart, not just a piece of it, but all of it and giving it to Him. Because if we don't trust Him and we don't trust who God has for us, right, to lead us into where it is that we're supposed to be led into, then what will happen is we will find ourselves looking back and comparing what it is that what it was and making the past into our present, and also altering some things and changing some things and switching up some things. And sometimes we live with regrets. And I'm pretty sure that Lot's wife, she lived with some regrets, just simply because she couldn't take back what was going on. She couldn't take back that she had already looked back and she had turned into a pillar of salt. So I challenge you on today, and I challenge me on today. Look, we ain't becoming no pillar of salt. We ain't trying to do that. We ain't got to look back. We gonna look forward. So a lot of times we lose focus because we're not focused on ourselves. We focus on the wrong things. And so today I want us to be challenged on today to go ahead and really take some internal inventory, like do some internal inventory. What are some things that I need to give up? What are some things that I need to be challenged with? What are some things that God is trying to do away with in my life? What do I need to take accountability for? Not put it off on other people, because that's what we do. We put it off on other people. What are some things that God has been calling you to do that you haven't done? And what are some things that you know that you're supposed to be doing, right? Not just the things that you are doing, but just some things that you know that you are supposed to be doing, or maybe you're supposed to be joining this church, or maybe you're supposed to be out in mission, right? But God hasn't really been able to talk to you because you haven't really spent time with Him. And so I just wanted to get on here on today, man, to encourage you on today is that sometimes we have to take inventory on ourselves. We have to look in the mirror and we have to change some things within ourselves. Be the change that you want to see. Because the reality is that whatever you do, somebody is looking at you. And I think that sometimes it's easier said than done, right? Because we don't think that we're making an impact on other people's lives, but we do have an influence. And even in that influence, we have to be accountable for our actions. We have to be accountable for the things that it is that we do, as well as the connections that we make, the relationships that we decide that we want to be a part of, right? Because we choose to be a part of these relationships. Nobody forces us to be a part of these relationships, friendships, whether or not if it's, now you're born into the family that you're born into, right? And sometimes we may not even understand why we're born into the family that we're born into, but everything has a purpose, right? Because God tells us that in Ecclesiastes 3:1. He tells us to everything there's a season and a time and a purpose for everything. And a lot of times we want things the way we want them. We want them when we want them. And guess what? That's the natural thing. And God hears that, God sees that, but God gives us exactly what it is that we need. And He also gives us what we want too. But all of those things come in His timing. And His timing is so perfect. And He says it in His word. To everything, there's a season and a time and a purpose. And we also have to be okay with our seasons being up in certain situations, whether or not if it's relationships, whether or not if it's situationships. Whether, yep, I said situationships. Yep, I said situationships. Because I say that too, because we live in a society now where you got people that it's like, well, we don't have a title, but we're kind of dating, but he can still do his own thing and I can still do my own thing, but we're not labeling it. It's just that we understand it. So as long as we understand it, it's okay. And that's fine if that's what you choose to do. But what you're doing is you're opening that door up, right? For an opportunity for nothing to really grow from that. You never know what could happen out of that situation, right? But what if you really do want, you know what I'm saying? Like you really have to seek those things within yourself. Do I really want a relationship and I'm just settling for this situation? You have to be clear, right? Because even us as females, we have emotions, we have needs, we have all of these different things, and so do men. But men vocalize and they don't internalize things as much as women do. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But I still say that even in those type of things we have to be mindful of. And so the thing is that we have to be very intentional with what it is that we want out of life. We can't be out here playing games. I mean, I say it all the time, we're maturing, right? And so if we want better, we got to do better. And so it starts with us. It starts with us. What am I doing that I should be doing, God? What is it that you want from me, God, that I should be doing? What do I need to let go of? And I think that's something, right? When I think about Lot's wife and I think about all of those things, because, she had gotten so accustomed to, where she was. And so when God showed favor upon Lot and his family, and he told them, okay, I'm going to destroy the city, but your family needs to go. And so even to that, there had to be some type of disconnect somewhere, because even though even though she loved her husband, it was almost like she loved where she was and what she was familiar with more than her trusting her husband's word and trusting that God was going to lead them, right? Because I can't even assume that she even really had a relationship with God. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. You know what I'm saying? But I just put myself in that situation myself. And I'm like, man, I get so excited about the unknown, right? And the new. But at the same time, I kind of get nervous too sometimes because I'm not familiar with it. But in my mind, because I know who I serve, because I know who I trust, I say, okay, God, you got this. You got this whole thing under control. I don't need to orchestrate anything. You are my orchestrator. You are the one who's going to give me the instructions. And so if you tell me to go, that's what I'm going to do. And so that's what I've done. And so now that you do these different things, we begin to evolve. and we begin to grow. Because what happens is we begin to build relationships with people who we may not have even had an opportunity to even meet. And that's called networking. And next thing you know, right, that desire of that job or that career that it is that you may have because you haven't yet answered the call, right? Because you haven't answered the call and you weren't in position at that moment, but because you decided to unfamiliarize yourself with home or to leave those things behind or the past you to let that go. And you said, okay, God, I'm going to take a leap of faith and I'm going to trust you with this new identity of who I am and who I'm becoming. I'm going to trust you with my present self to accept the future self. I'm going to accept you in my present self. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to accept you in my present self. So then that way I can accept my future self. Because what God is doing is he's steadily evolving us. Look, y'all, I'm telling you, I'm not a finished product by any means necessary. I don't proclaim to have all the answers at all because I don't have all of the answers. But what I do know is that you can't hold on to old stuff. You got to let even the old habits go. And those old habits sometimes can really be detrimental to our growth because we're so used to God coming in a certain way. We expect God to do it the same way. And God is so big where sometimes in life, he just doesn't do it the same way. And he does it his way. That's the reality, right? So we have to trust that he knows what's best for us. We have to trust that he knows what we need and the timing that we needed, y'all. I'm telling you, y'all, I'm dealing with that right now because I'm like, God, I'm here now. All right, let's get this career going. Let's get this thing going, right? And I'm excited about it. And I'm just like, okay, God, here you go. You're positioning me. You're building me up. You're helping me into these new relationships. You're getting me standard. You're giving me all of these people that are coming towards me, right? And it's crazy because he's allowing people to be drawn, like the spirit is really drawing people in. The spirit that's within me is really drawing people in, right? And so I'm like, okay, all right, so you got to connect. And sometimes, I get tired of connecting with people. That's me just being real. Sometimes I do. I get tired, I get burned out sometimes with connecting with people because I work right, an 8-hour shift and I'm doing customer service, right? And I'm literally sharing with these people what diversity is, what inclusion is, and what all of these different things are. And so by the time I finish, I'm like, okay, now I got to have another conversation with everybody else. And these are extracurricular activities, but this is going to be more beneficial to me in the long term because God's work is priority, right? His business is priority. And so, sometimes, man, we get burnt out. And so, me being intentional with my habits, right, and knowing me, I have to now separate, and I have to also have me a planner. I have to literally plan my stuff out now. I was not a planner at first, but listen, I was very spontaneous. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. I was that person. But now I'm like, okay, all right, the same way that you do those things sometimes at work, you need to take some of that over and pass some of that over into your personal life, Toya. Because let's get this organized, let's get this structured, and let's get these things done. Because what happens is that the more time that you dedicate, right, to God, right, we dedicate this time to God, but then also God begins to open up doors and you can then begin to network and plan and schedule meetings and all different types of things where you are ready so you can get yourself prepped to talk if that's what it is that God has called you to do. So I know that that's what God has called me to do. And so even me with this, me even taking a leap of faith to just do a podcast, to even say, okay, Toya, you're starting off like this and you're going to be doing it like this. There is no right or wrong way, right? God just wants to see that you are going to be obedient to what it is that he's called for us to do. And the reality is that every single Friday at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time, I'm on here because I have to glow for him. I have to live for him. I have to shine for him. I have to do what it is that he's called for me to do, whether or not the message reaches, millions of people, it reaches whoever it needs to reach in that moment. And I am truly, truly honored and blessed for those of you who do listen to it and who do share it, but I do know that there is going to be a time where this podcast, right, is going to turn into something bigger. And so being intentional with something that may even seem like it's small, right, compared to where it is that you know that God is taking you to, right? But being obedient, even in that, and God seeing that, He begins to open up doors that no man can close. And I say that and I say it again. God opens up doors that no man can close. Nobody. Nobody. Because what God has for you is for you. And so that's why I say it's so intense. That's why we have to be so intentional with being who He created us to be. And so that's why I titled this tonight, Be You. Be you. But then also examine yourself, examine your heart, examine your intentions, examine who God has called you to be, examine where you're at right now in this moment, and being open and honest with yourself. Because guess what? God already knows. God already knows what it is that you do. God already knows. And the crazy thing about it is that we want all of these things that God has for us. Some of us, we want to get married. Some of us want to have children, but we don't even like ourselves. Yep, I said it. Yeah. Some things I don't even like about myself. And so I have to literally go back and discipline myself because, listen, some of these things I can't be doing out here as a wife. I can't do those things. I can't be out here just sitting here talking and saying whatever I want. I can say what I want to say, but it's a way of saying things. It's a way of saying how you say things is so key because it's real out here. Everybody out here don't receive or perceive things the same way. So that's a whole nother ball game. And so that's what I said. We got to work on ourselves. We do an inventory and we say, okay, I need to work on me. What do I need to work on me? God, show me me. I think that's a prayer all in itself. God, show me me. Help me to fix myself internally. And if I need to go out here and seek a therapist, then I need to go do that. God, give me some insight as to which way I need to go. And I promise you, God will answer you. God will send confirmation all around you. And sometimes it ain't even your own family that'll send you confirmation. It may be a commercial on TV. It may be something in passing, maybe something on a license plate or whatever. Listen, be intentional. Start looking around for God because God will really show up. If you really out here seeking Him, He will show up and show you you. Okay. The reason why a lot of us are not really where we're supposed to be is because of ourselves. We self sabotage. I don't know about y'all, but I self sabotage. Yep, I do. I self sabotage. I don't know why I do it, but sometimes I do it just because it's comfortable, just because I'm used to doing it. And I've been doing it for so long. I've been doing it for 36 years. I've gotten so accustomed to living living the way that Toya wants to live, right? Because the flesh is so it's crazy. It's not it's just it's something that I'm just used to doing because it's comfortable. I'm used to doing it. And so what God had to show me is that now I need you to discipline yourself. Because the reality is, right? And I think about this a lot, is like, man, you knew me before I was in my mother's womb, right? So the reality is that I was spirit before I was flesh. And so if I can get back to who I was in spirit before I was flesh, then maybe, just maybe, right, I can get a grip on this thing. So I'm not saying that we're perfect, right? But God wants us to really be intentional with our efforts. And I truly believe that He is a rewarder of what it is. Like God will do whatever He chooses to do because He's God. So if it's something that you've been seeking God for, right? I challenge you to get out of your own way. And I do this for me too, y'all. When I talk to y'all, I promise you I'm talking to me too, because we in this thing together. The glow up is real. We have to deal with those things internally in order for the light to really shine. We can't glow up if we don't grow up. And that's the whole bottom line of this thing. Like, yes, life be life, but God be God. Like God really do be out here God. And that's why I told y'all, look, I'm listening out. I'm wearing my affirmations. I'm wearing my affirmations. This thing say vibing and thriving. I am vibing. I am on a whole train. of coolness right now, you know, and at the same time, I'm thriving. And I'm going to continue to say I'm thriving because even if I'm not thriving, I'm thriving. Yup. Now, if you picking up what I just put down, listen, I'm telling you, I'm vibing. We vibing. And we going to be thriving. Because it's not in what we do, it's what we say, it's what we speak over ourselves. And we have to be mindful of that too. Like it's a whole internal thing. Like it really is. Some of the things that we've gotten comfortable with, we just randomly say it. And that's the thing. We have to be conscious of the things that we say out of our mouths because of our habits. Our habits have to die. Our flesh has to die. We have to deal with those things. We have to stop internalizing everything, and we have to stop playing victim. Take accountability for the things that we can't control. Take accountability for the things that we've done. You're not your circumstances. No, Toya, you're not your circumstances. Bro, you're not your circumstances. Sis, you're not your circumstances. Let's move forward. Let's glow. Let's glow because that's what God has called for us to do. He's called for us to glow, but He wants us to grow through it, go through it, and glow through it. Because guess what? Somebody gonna ask you, baby, you sure is shining today. How in the world are you shining just as much as you are? And you know, somebody else asked me that. It was like, girl, you just glowing. And I was like, girl, it ain't nobody but God. God is really getting me to glow like this, but I'm growing and it's real. It's really real out here. And so that's why I say it's time for us to continue to trust God, right? First and foremost, it's time for us to continue to do the work. We got to do the work. We got to put the work in because we're going to reap a harvest. We know that we're going to reap a harvest. We just got to know who we trust in. We can't trust ourselves because we don't know what's best for us, but God does. And we don't want to end up like Lot's wife at the end of the day. We don't want to turn into a pillar of salt. We don't want to just get so conducive to what it is that we're familiar with. We want more out of life. I don't know about y'all, but I do. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure you do too. I'm pretty sure you don't want to just continue to be where you're at for the next 5 years. You want to elevate. And that's what God has called for us to do. He called for us to elevate, but it's not comfortable sometimes. Even in elevation, it's not comfortable, but that's okay because guess what? God says, I'm still here. I haven't left your side. And we're going to do away with some of these things that's inside of us. Be honest with yourselves. Okay. Go and take some inventory tonight, y'all. We got to grow because we got to glow. The glow up is real. Okay. So let's grow to glow. And I'm going to see y'all next Friday, same time, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube Live on the Glow Up Is. Subscribe to my channel. And then of course you know you can also find me on Spotify. The Glow Up Is. Subscribe. I love y'all and I'll see you next week. Let's continue to grow to glow. Bye.